Now, please give it up for your hosts of the show, Risk.
Hi, everybody. Hello. How are you doing tonight? Are you doing good? You feeling good? Oh my God, it's so much cooler than it was a month ago here. It's so comfortable. It was a little bit of a sweat lodge scenario last time through no one's fault. It was just fucking hot. I just want to say we've only moved here a month ago. This is our second show, Risk's second show here at Lyric, and they've been so nice. Can we just all give them a round of applause? I get here and I feel like a part owner, the way they greet me. They're just the nicest, sweetest people. And really nice, not Texas nice. I was just in Texas for a week. I'm from Texas. Anyone here from Texas? Yeah. That means 12 of you are, and you're like, I'm not putting my fucking hand up. Someone even booed. I support it. I get it. I am from San Antonio, or as wealthy white people in San Antonio have this really great thing that they do that cracks me up, where they pronounce things in such a heavy Hispanic accent, but nothing else. And they probably don't vote in ways that support the people whose accent they're doing. So they will say, like, yes, we're from San Antonio, and it'll be just like the richest, whitest, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off looking woman. And if you get them talking about street names, they'll be like, oh, when we go to Alamo Heights, we have a high tea. Me and the other ladies from the Red Hat group, we meet right off Guadalupe. And it's like, it's Guadalupe, ma'am. You don't have to do that. When I was there, though, I will say, it's like one of those things with going home where you know all the things that are wrong with home, but you can't help feeling so nostalgic when you get there. Like, my mom will do a load of laundry for me, and I don't know how she makes it smell like that. I bought all the same things. It doesn't fucking work. It's my mom's laundry. I love being there. Texans, Southerners in general, they're very nice in that way that's like, oh, well, you get home safe. Bless her heart. It's like that kind of like, you're vile and disgusting, you're going to burn in hell, but I will always have you over if you need a friend, okay? Or if you want to have a beer with somebody, but the minute you leave, I will probably judge you horribly. When I was there, though, I had to go to, where did I have to go? Oh, yeah, Walmart, which is one of those fun, like, I never go to a Walmart in fucking L.A. Why? And I went, and I was standing at the counter, and I was buying like an SD card, because why else would you go to Walmart in San Antonio? And I'm standing there, and I hear, young man, and I look up, and there's this very tall, spindly, bald-headed man, and he's in like a country western shirt. He's very, very sun-kissed, but his eyes are a bit cloudy. You know, like the blind oracle in the horror movie that sees, well, she sees everything actually, but nothing. And he kind of has these cloudy gray eyes, and I look up, and he's very tall, much taller than me, and he's coming towards me, and he kind of has like the horror movie hand, you know what I'm talking about? Like this weird, exaggerated, it's a little Nosferatu in the moment, but like Nosferatu that drives like a Ford Lariat. Like it's a weird mix of things. And as he comes up to me, I say, yeah, hi. And he's like, young man, when I sit on my back porch at night, I'm absolutely eaten alive by mosquitoes. And I'm like waiting for, we know each other from, you know what I mean? I mean, this man, like, he's one of these people that registers as older than me. Like, from a distance, you'd be like, oh, that guy is like very trim and fit, a little slow moving. I bet he's in his late 60s. And then when that oracle eye is in your face, you're like, you're 87. And you are somehow magically drove yourself here, probably. And he starts telling me this fucking long-ass-winded story about, like, how he gets absolutely eaten alive by mosquitoes on his porch at night. I'm just like, what is going on? And then he raises his, like, weird, Tales from the Crypt finger, like, up the length of my body, and I'm like, where are we going? And he's like, I put all sorts of things on my skin, lotions and sprays and what have you, and still these mosquitoes absolutely torture me on my porch. And I was like, what the And I'm alone, like, I don't have anyone there. The only other person there is this, like, 19-year-old, like, cashier with, like, shaggy hair who's just kind of looking at everything like, what the fuck, man? I shouldn't ring you out. And then his, like, Father Time's finger slowly reaches my face, and he's like, that hat. And I'm like, and it's this hat. And he's like, I need a hat like that. And I'm like, you need a hat like this? And he's like, yes, because you know what the mosquitoes love. I'm like, when he's like, blood from my head. I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, as they do. But he's being nice in that weird southern way. So I say, look, sir, I wish I could tell you, I ordered this weird hat for like a sketch I was in a year ago, and he was like, a sketch? You pose for drawings? And I'm like, we are not, like, this is not gonna, I have to explain so much just to tell you about my fucking hat. And I say, no, look, I got it in a 4-pack, but I didn't really need them, and now I just wear it all the time. I like a hat without a brim. And he's like, well, that's what I want for my head. I put rubbing alcohol on my head. I'm just like, God. So finally, I'm like, I get wrung out. I'm just like, hey, good luck. Amazon, look up beanie. And he's like, a beanie? And I'm like, beanie? A beanie? And I'm like, it's like he's repeating the word like, fuck Satan and die. Like he's like so shocked, fuck Satan and die. But all he's doing is saying beanie. And finally I just say beanie and I leave. And I go home and I tell my mom, my stepdad, when I get home, I'm like, I saw this like kind of nice but really creepy, weird old like Texas Vincent Price guy at Walmart. And the bugs love his head blood. And my mom was like, oh, well, people are crazy. And my mom is like the woman in the small San Antonio subdivision that has like the freedom flag and the Ukraine flag and all the flags. And neighbors on either side can burn in hell and kiss her at. My mom is that woman, right? So as I'm telling her, she's like, well, thank you. You hate Texas. I see you. I raise you. No, And I tell my mom, and she's like, people are crazy, and then I say, yeah. And then we go to the grocery store no more than 4 hours later. My mom, my stepdad, and me. And if you're thinking Texas small town, San Antonio's a pretty big town. It's like huge, endless subdivisions. It's gonna meet Austin soon, or Austin's meeting it, depending on how you look at it. And there's a grocery store chain there called H-E-B. It stands for H-E Butts, which you always made fun of when I was little. And it's it's like Walmart with food, but just food. And we're walking around, and I'm like walking with my family, and all of a sudden I hear this woman say, "Sir, sir!" And I turn around, and there's a woman wave at me, and I'm like, "Yes," and then she points. And I look to her left, and the crypt keeper is there, and he has his little red basket in his finger. Boy! And I'm like, oh my God. And then my mom, having heard the story, she grabs my arm and she's like, no. And I'm like, yes. So he comes up and he talks to us for a minute, and I just said, so did you go home and try to find the hat? And he's like, beanies. And I'm like, yes, it's beanies. Did you just Google beanies? And anyway, it was very weird. And as we left, the man, it was very sweet. He patted my stepdad's shoulder, and he just said, "Your boy is very kind." And I was just like, really? Like, is that all it takes? And then we walked away, and my mom was like, most of them are assholes, but there's some sweet, godly people here. So I hope that man protects his fucking dome from the Mothras that are fucking eating his life force. I almost want to be like, dude, at your age and your capability physically, they might be injecting something into you. Like, maybe you need to keep the moss on your head. But if you haven't been to San Antonio, go. My mom, every time I come back to LA, she's like, tell your friends we have a spare room. And I'm like, how broad is the invitation? It's pretty broad. You just have to be gay or trans, and you need to hate Donald Trump, and then that's all. Oh, my mom, the whole trip. Another indictment. She's so fucking thrilled. She is like a pig in shit right now over these fucking indictments, man. Oh, God. All right, now I'm going to tell you about that when I come back. We have some amazing storytellers here tonight. I'm so excited about this crop of wonderful people. How many of you have never been to a RISC before? Great. Yeah, yes, Mrs. Witherspoon, me. I love it. Thank you for being so studious. You're going to hear 4 storytellers tell true stories from their lives. Some of them are funny. Some of them will break your heart. My favorite are the ones that are funny and also break your heart. This first person I have known for so long. She's one of the first storytelling world people I connected with here, and she's just such a gem of a human being. She has an open mic here every Saturday at 1 p.m., and I asked everyone, I was like, we're familiar with the Moth, right? Yeah. So people will be like, oh, I don't know. And this is why I love her sense of humor. She's like, oh, and you can also say, I won the moth once. Like, she was very big. She doesn't want any all the things she's won multiple fucking times, even though she should have, because she's funny as shit. Please welcome to the stage, Jen Curcio.
Okay, thank you. I keep this quick. I'm going to visit David's mother in San Antonio. No. So in 2017, I was in therapy because I had been in a bad relationship and I needed to learn how to like fortify myself, enforce boundaries, all that good stuff. And despite all of my therapists' stark warnings to stay away from Tinder, I went straight on Tinder. And the first woman who showed any interest in me was Kelly. And because I was also in improv class at this time, I was saying yes and to everything. And Kelly was like fine, she was like the peanut butter jelly sandwich. I hate to say that, but she was. Like she had a corporate job, she dressed very corporate, and like I wasn't that interested in her, but she was like, hey, I really like you. I want to take you on a second date that's going to blow your mind. And I was like, yes. And my therapist is going to be pissed. But what? Where is it? Like, what are we doing? And she was like, I want to take you on a once-in-a-lifetime journey to see this total eclipse of the sun. And I was like, holy shit, let's go. So that Saturday morning, we woke up and we packed my Honda Fit. We had 2 sleeping bags, a tent, 2 gallons of water, and a bag of pretzels. That's it. Nothing else. We had no hotels booked. We had nothing. And we got in the car, and we were so excited, and we started driving up, and the first stop was Anderson's for pea soup. And if you're from Southern California, you probably maybe know that. I don't know. So we get our pea soup. It's delicious. We like eat. It's a good time. We take photos. We get back in the car, and she busts out a New York Times, and it was 36 questions to make you fall in love. Exactly. And honestly, I don't know if this is one of them, but she was like, what's the worst trauma you've ever had? And I was like, is that really in there? But I was driving, so I couldn't look. And so I told her. And I was like, what's yours? And she told me hers, and I was like, is that real? And so, like, I didn't fall in love with her, but I was like, we're getting to know each other now. This is great. And so we kept going, and we were getting hungry at this point. So we're, like, in the ass crack of California. There was, like, dirt to the left of us, dirt to the right of us. And we were like, let's stop and get food. And the only place that was there was an Applebee's. And so we go in, and, like, we were holding hands, and, like, everybody, like, shifted to the other side of the room as if they were going to, like, become gay being near us. And, like, nobody would serve us. And we were like, okay, like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm a white woman. I came out, like, 4 years before this in Los Angeles. So, like, I never felt prejudice until this moment. And I was like, wow, like, this is, like, a big life moment. And I'm sharing it with Kelly. And I was like, is this love? So finally, a waitress comes over and she's like, I don't care what you guys do in your spare time, I'll serve you. And I'm like, thank you. So we get our chicken fingers, we eat, and we get back in the car, and I'm like, wow, like this was a big moment. Like I felt prejudice, and like she shared it with me. We were like holding hands. This is wild. So we like continue up, and we find we're like in Sacramento at this point, and we find a campsite, and we just go up and we're like, hey, do you have any spots open? And they're like, yeah, come on in. Everybody's welcome here. And like after the Applebee's, we're like, yeah. So we get there, and like it was a family-owned business, and this woman wasn't just the grandmother; she was the grandmother of the whole campsite. Like she knew everybody. She was like, "I've been here my entire life. Come to my RV for dinner. We're having Chipotle." And I was like, yes! I was like never so excited for Chipotle. So I was like, yes, I'm gonna meet people. So like we go over there, and she has this dog named Satan. Because her whole thing was, who's a good boy? Satan's a good boy. And I was like, what a delight. Like, this is my grandmother now. I love her. We had a great time. And it totally, like, cleared out the, like, whole, like, Applebee's homophobia thing. And we get back in the car the next day, and we, like, continued up to our like, ultimate destination, the path of totality, where, like, the whole eclipse was happening. So we get up there, and it's, like, dusk. It's Oregon, and we pull into a national park, and I get to the park ranger station, and to my incredible shock, there was an Irish park ranger. I honestly thought you had to be American for that. I don't know why. Like, I know that sounds messed up. But it, like, shocked the shit out of me that she was Irish. And it made it, like, 20,000 times creepier. Because, like, fog was rolling in, it was getting dark, and she said, I'm not going to do the accent, but she was like, I'm so sorry, we don't have any more spaces left, but if you're feeling brave, you can sleep by this cemetery. And I was like, that sounds spooky, I love spooky stuff, I'll go. And she's like, bring a torch, there's ghosts. And I was like, yeah! So we, like, drive down to there, and we, like, park the car next to the cemetery. And at this point, like, even more fog is rolling in, it's getting darker. So we get our flashlights out, and we make our way through the cemetery to the town, and there's only one restaurant, an Applebee's. But this time, they weren't prejudiced because we were gay, they were prejudiced because we were eclipsers. And I get it, because there were, like, it was, like, jam-packed with other eclipsers, and I know they were eclipsers because they were wearing NASA t-shirts or Star Trek t-shirts. And they all had telescopes with them in the Applebee's. And I was like, you don't need that here. But they had it, and I get it. These people had every right to be pissed at us. We were eclipsers through and through. So we eat another round of chicken fingers, and we go back to the car, and we spent the night, like, just curled up. We had sex in the back of my Honda Fit. Thank you. And I was like, I'm feeling it. Like, I'm feeling this. Like, I think Kelly and I have something going on here. Like, maybe something's really going to happen. So we fall asleep in each other's arms in the back of the Fit. And the next day, we wake up bright and early. The eclipse is going to happen at 11 a.m. So she surprises me with 2 6-packs of Bud Light. Exactly. But we take them, and we find a boulder. And I'm terrified of heights, but we climb up this boulder, and we're, like, ready for the eclipse. And we got our glasses on to see it. And it's amazing. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Like, all of a sudden, it went from, like, a bright sunny day to, like, royal blue to, like, navy blue to just total darkness. And it was beautiful. Like, all the birds and the animals stopped. And even though there was, like, 1,000 people around us, they all just, like, got quiet. And we were all, like, sharing this moment together, like we are right now. Just kidding. And it was beautiful, and it was, like, truly the most amazing thing. It was like this big black disc, like, went in front of the sun, and there were, like, these, like, electric blue, like, swirls, like solar flares coming off this black disc in the middle of the sky. And there's no photo or video that ever does it justice. And I was eclipse drunk, and I was, like, really, really feeling it in this deeply emotional moment. And Kelly and I kissed, and then she said, we should get married. And I was like, yes. Let's go. I saw a church back there through the cemetery. We're doing this. This was such a beautiful moment that we shared together. We're getting married. So we climb off that boulder after the eclipse. And at this point, like, after hiking through the cemetery to get to this church, I'm sobering up and I'm freaking the fuck out. Like, everything that I've talked about in therapy is crystal clear. And I'm like, Dr. Mitchell's right. I am impulsive and I need to stop. And I'm freaking out, but I don't want to say anything to Kelly because I don't want to upset her. And I'm like, that's another thing I need to work on. I need to just tell people when I'm upset. But I'm like, no, we're just going to see what happens. And so we're walking up to the church, and I'm sweating, and I'm an atheist, but I start praying to God. And I say, God, please, I promise you, if this church is closed, I will go to therapy every week. I'll go to therapy twice a week if I have to. I'll pay the copay twice. I don't care. And we get up to the door, and I'm shaking, and I'm sweating, and Kelly reaches for the knob, and it just jingles. It doesn't open. And I thank God that door was locked. And then we look at the church sign, and it says, closed for the eclipse. And I was like, thank God this is not happening. I want to tell you this. We did not get married. We only dated on and off for like 6 months. But you better believe I went to therapy every single week.
Jen Curcio. Oh my God. I don't like what y'all do, but I'll serve you. God, I'll serve you. No, it was so funny when Jen said they had sex in her Honda Fit, and a man in the audience went, "Woo, that was my husband." And he specifically, I think, fetishizes that because he's 6'6", and there is no car sex, no Honda Fit sex in our/his future. Just so uncomfortable. Can I just say, when I was on a plane, literally yesterday, I think of this every time I go in an airplane bathroom. I'm like, fucking in here is the vilest prospect I could ever. The idea there's a Mile High Club, it's like, let's go in there. Just fucking blue cream swirling in a toilet, shit smears, you bang your head on the wall, there's like fucking handprints, like weird. No! Why? And then people in first class are so excited about their lotion. We have lotion in ours. Fuck you. God. Disgusting. Oh. Sorry. I just love too that like this. Yeah, I went on a date with this person. It was really hot. And we were talking, and they asked me to go to the path of totality. Like, what a weird, frightening thing to be like. Yeah, I guess he's gonna kill me, or we're getting married. It's like one or the other fucking thing. That story, that's insane, Jen. When I was home in Texas, a little short story. I'm a returner. I'm like my mom says that we're like serial killers. Most famous serial killers ended up getting busted because they couldn't keep themselves from going back to the scene of the place where they killed people. Like there's picture after picture of like famous serial killers like in a crowd as they load the body into the ambulance. Like, oh, I couldn't stay away. And my mother and I, she was a single mom. We lived in like 14 apartments. By the time I graduated high school, we bounced all over San Antonio. So I love when I go home, like returning. And when I got home this time, I've been thinking a lot about my summer camp, which is in a place called Hunt, Texas, which is also, it was right next to one of the biggest state prisons in the whole state. It was called Camp Flaming Arrow. It really was called Camp Flaming Arrow. It was a YMCA camp called Camp Flaming Arrow. It made me who I am. I had been so excited to go there because I remember this crazy thing when I was little. We would go there, and there was this really and everything on the camp was named like the indigenous Native American. It was just a little bit like, yeah, it was a camp. It was a YMCA camp. And when we'd go through the cafeteria line, there was this guy named Jimmy, and Jimmy was this really sweet, very quiet Mexican guy who had hair in a ponytail, and he would be on like the rice and the bean. He'd always say, "Hey, David," I'd say hi. It was very sweet. And one time we went camping. We were going to go up to Vespers, which is this bluff where we were going to look at all the different, like, you know, little arrowhead camps. You know, we were like, they had plant fake shit. It was always like, I found an arrowhead. No, you didn't. It's a rock. And your counselor put it there. Anyway, we're going camping, and we're all around the campfires, like my whole cabin of boys, and we do the thing where, you know, like you put tinfoil around a ball of like meat and potatoes and carrots, and you just throw the whole ball in the fire. you know, yeah, this is the thing, man. I'm an outdoor. No, this is the thing you did, and then you open it and you eat hopefully cooked meat and kind of cooked potatoes and carrots. We would do it, and we were all hanging out, and this memory it's like one of those vivid, it's like I kind of feel like I lost time or I was abducted by an alien because I can't believe that it actually happened. A flaming arrow shoots over the campfire, and it lands in a tree, and it is an arrow on fire, like an arrow. And we're like, what? I'm maybe like 9 or I'm 10 maybe. And then we look, and in the clearing, through the clearing, comes an Indian, a Native American indigenous man with long black hair in like an orange kind of like a chap situation and beads, and he has an arrow and he has moccasins on, y'all. I mean, it was so weird, and I'm like, I think even little me was like, what the fuck is going on? And all the boys were like, ooh. And then we looked really clear, and it was Jimmy. It was Jimmy from the cafeteria. And now, looking back, he was in like a bad Halloween costume. He was in a Halloween costume that said Tonto on it. Do you know what I mean? Like that. And then he proceeded to give us this lecture, standing there, lit by the fire, arrow flaming in the tree, about not littering. He stood over the campfire for 5 minutes. This land's sacred. And we were, at one point, everyone was like, you're Jimmy. You're Jimmy. And then, he managed to weave into his story that he comes from generations of Native Americans that come from the land where the camp is built. And he has an accent during this too. He talks like hey David, what's up? But when he tells the story, he's like, this land, very sacred. Bad, like that. It was so, and I just remember, I'm telling you the story now, and I'm like, this is fucking insane. But when I was little, I was like, whoa. And it was so weird because then we all hear you never hear this from me, Jimmy. And he told us, I forget his name, Little Bear. I don't remember. He gave us he said, my tribal name is this. So then we all, our cabin, 13, 14 boys, we go back the rest of that session and we get our food, and he would put the ice cream scoop, of beans and rice, and he would just stare at us and we'd look at him shh, secret. You know what I mean? And I was so excited to see Camp Flamingo when I went home, and I fucking Googled it. Last summer was its last summer. They lost all their funding and they closed down, and they sold the property for $1.4 million to some developer. So I'll never be able to go to Camp Flaming Arrow. Anyway, I hope fucking Texas. I just hope Jimmy is out there living on the land and just shooting flaming arrows. It'll be like a paper mill, and they try to develop it. It's going to be like Poltergeist. You built it on sacred land! Oh, littering, Give this land back to the children. Okay. I'm so excited about our next storyteller. He's so funny and kind. He is the best. He's a TV writer, but he's on strike now. He's written some cool shows on Nickelodeon, and his energy is just so lovely and wonderful. He's a Moth Grand Slam winner, and he just wanted me to shame him by basically saying last time when he went to the Moth, Brian Kett drew his name first. Now, this is a deep cut fact. It means very little to most of you, but Ron is laughing a lot because I said it, and I hope he's happy with himself. Please welcome to the stage, Ron Hart.
Camp Flaming Arrow, that was awesome. Hey, everybody. Okay, so I'm a dad. I have 2 teenage daughters, and they go to my wife when they need to talk about clothes or their friends or their emotions or their changing bodies. They come to me when they need a ride. I'm essentially our kids' Uber driver. So parenting is not a competition, but it is possible to be a loser. My younger daughter's name is Lula. When she was 11 years old, she joined a competitive gymnastics team because being graceful skips a generation. Now, my wife has many amazing attributes, but possessing the patience to sit through a 4-hour-long gymnastics meet with middle schoolers is not one of them. But I actually liked watching Lula compete, and she sensed that, so she chose me. I became a gymnastics dad. And thank you. It's basically the Uber thing. It's just that when we get to the meets, we would walk in together. Until she saw her friends, and then she would sprint away from me as fast as she could. Now, I grew up playing sports. You probably pegged me as an athlete, right? But I did, basketball, baseball, tennis, basically anything that had a ball. I tried it, and I sucked at it. I played soccer for years. I was the backup goalie. If you're a coach for a soccer team, you take the kid who's the worst and you make him the goalie. I was the backup goalie. They wanted me on the bench, but not in the uniform. They wanted me in a goalie shirt just so they didn't accidentally put me in a game. So. I was terrible at this. And the closest I ever got to gymnastics, though, was when I said to my mom that I was going to play football. She signed me up for a tumbling class because, in her words, I needed to learn how to fall down a lot. But Lula had something I never had as an athlete, talent. She was really good at this. And on top of that, she loved it. And as a parent, to get to watch your kid do something they love, it's just this like amazing feeling. So I got to do that, and that was like what being a gymnastics dad was. Now, this is like we would drive hours away, to get to this place, and like it's like a convention center. There's 100 kids running around, and there's all the parents are crazy. And at the end of the event, there's like an hours-long award ceremony because every single kid has to win something. This is my life. Now, it's been a minute since the last Olympics, so I'm guessing a lot of you don't recall the rules for gymnastics. At an event, a meet, the gymnasts compete on 4 apparatuses. There's the bars, beam, floor, and vault. They get a score on each one of those. And then there's also an overall score for your meet. Now, at the end of the season, they had a state tournament. Lula really wanted to qualify for that. In order to qualify, her overall score had to be above a certain number for one event that season. Now, she was really good at 3 events, but she struggled with the bars. So because of that, her score was never quite high enough, and she couldn't quite qualify for the state tournament, and time was running out in the season. So as gymnastics dad, I said, well, tough shit, kid. No. I said, hey, I think you're going to have to work harder to get this done. And she's like, can I take private lessons to get better at the bars? I was like, sure, more daddy Uber time. Great. And this time it wasn't, she didn't even have her friends there. It was just her coach, but still she would sprint away from me. But she put her head down, she worked harder, and she started getting better. Another thing I never experienced as an athlete, improvement. And finally, she had a meet, and she hit the magic number. She qualified for the state tournament. She was stoked. We got smoothies. This was March 7th, 2020. Oh, you guys remember? Okay. 7 days later, the world ends. And look, a lot of bad things happened, but in our corner of the world, they canceled the state tournament. She was devastated. And then gymnastics went away for a long time. When it came back, her gym had to pull their equipment out into the parking lot and put down mats. She was in a mask, 6 feet away from her friends. It was horrible. I mean, 1 million people died too, but this was really hard on her. And then they didn't know if they were going to have a season. Finally, they were like, okay, it's going to be a truncated season. And by now, Lula is 13 years old. All she wanted was to qualify for that state tournament once again. But because she'd taken all this time off, well, not time off, but there was less practice, her skills had slipped. And she wasn't getting the scores on the bars that she needed to qualify. Week after week, she would see her friends qualify for this tournament, but she didn't make it. She was devastated. And unlike my father watching me play tennis, I knew that she could do better. But she had been through this once before, so Lula worked harder. It was amazing to watch as a parent, and slowly her scores started creeping closer and closer to that magic number until she was almost there. But time was running out. It was a short season, and there was only one meet left in the entire season, her last chance to qualify for the state tournament. Now, it happened that my wife was out of town, but this was such a hot topic in our house that Lula's older sister, Anina, who never came out of her bedroom unless a new season of the Umbrella Academy dropped, was going to come with us to this meet. And we drive an hour to get there. So once we get there, the girls go to the bathroom. So now I have both daughters running away from me. But a second later, Anina comes racing out of the bathroom. She's like, Lula caught sight of herself in the bathroom mirror, and she realized there, an hour from home, that the new bra my wife had bought her was sticking out of the back of her competition leotard, and there was no way to cover it up. She's freaking out, crying, and would not leave the bathroom. Now, you guys are probably wondering, why would she freak out so much about a bra strap? Let Gymnastics Dad break this down for you. Gymnastics has a governing body. in this country. It's called USA Gymnastics. It's this wonderful organization. If you're like comparing it to the NRA. That's harsh. That's harsh. I don't know that the NRA ever employed Larry Nassar, but they have a lot of draconian rules about gymnasts' hair, jewelry, makeup, and what they wear. There's literally an actual rule prohibiting visible underwear. They consider this a uniform violation and deduct points from little girls because they're awesome. Now, remember, I said I played a lot of sports growing up. I don't think there was ever a time I was on the field that my underwear wasn't showing somehow. But this is just a different world, right? So, but now this event is happening in like 15 minutes. And if Lula takes the floor with a bra strap showing, she's going to have to eat a deduction, and then there is no way she's going to qualify for the state tournament. This is a catastrophe. I have to fix it. I'm trying to think, what can I do? What can I do? I was like, could she just not wear a bra? And Anina is like, dude, this parenting is not a competition, but my wife would not have asked that question. And here's the thing, it's okay for me to kind of joke about my wife doing all the parenting, but only if I am actually there for my kids when they really need me. And on that day, my daughter really needed me to go emergency bra shopping. So I said to Anina, I'll be back. And I ran to the mall across the street from the convention center. Yes, me running. I am sweating. I'm out of breath. Everybody's in the mall is like staring at me. And at this moment, Anina texts me, the coach says you have 10 minutes, which is great because I needed anxiety to get my heart rate up even higher. I'm spinning around this mall atrium, just looking at the signs, trying to figure out what to do. I know I could find a soft pretzel here. I don't know how to find a bra. I am lost. But then I remembered something my wife said. We used to, when the kids were little, we would take them into Disneyland. And she would say to them, this is a big place. If we get separated and you get lost, find a mommy and ask for help. Yeah, she's smart. And then I see a woman pushing a stroller. A mommy! I run up to her. We're gonna get a bra! Now, I'm sure this woman still goes to dinner parties and tells the story about the sweaty fat guy asking about buying lingerie. But my wife was right. Mommy has come through. She took this lost little boy and pointed him in the direction of H&M, which was perfect, but it was this huge store. And it was like I had walked into Dodger Stadium and someone had put a bra in every seat. And I'm like, how am I going to find the right one in 10 minutes? Which is when Anina texts me, 7 minutes! And I was like, oh my God, how is this going to work? Lula had worked so hard to make her dream come true, and now it was all going to shit because she was wearing the wrong underwear and her dad couldn't fix it. I felt defeated. I was not the right parent for this job. My kid had let me into this one little corner for life, and I failed her. But then, standing there, I realized I was the right parent for this job. As gymnastics dad, the thing I saw most often was Lula booking it away from me. All I ever saw was the back of her competition leotard. I'm the one who knew precisely where a bra strap could not be. I did not realize it, but I had been training for this moment all season long. So now the theme from The Natural is playing in my head. I'm swiping away hanger after hanger until I find it, the bra. I grab it, I go up, I'm paying for it, and as I'm paying, Anina texts me, 4 minutes, and I say to the cashier, no bag! And I go running back through this mall with a bra in my fist. Stroller mom sees me, she shoots me finger guns. An old man holds open the door. Traffic stops because I look like a crazy person. When I get to the venue, Anina is waiting for me. She takes the bra and races to the bathroom to give it to her sister. Lula gets to the floor of the event as they are singing the national anthem to start. I stuck the landing. And then, much like her father in the girls' underwear department, Lula rose to the occasion. She had her best meet of the season. She hit the magic number. She was going to the state tournament. And Ian and I were going crazy in the stands. Yeah, you can clap for her. She's 13. So afterwards, she comes up and I congratulate her, give her a hug, and then she sprints away from me so she can go get a good seat for the 9-hour medal ceremony. And as I'm watching her go, just noting the beautiful lack of visible underwear, it occurs to me that someday she's going to run away from me forever. She's going to go off, she's going to have her life, be a beautiful adult, and maybe somewhere down the line, the fact that she worked so hard to achieve her dreams and made it happen will matter to her. And because of that, I think that I finally found the sport I'm good at. Gymnastics dad. So I'm Ubering my kids home, and she says to me, "Daddy, you bought me a better bra than Mommy did." And I said, "Oh, Lula, parenting is not a competition." But on that day, I was a winner. Now, that is my story, but I have two postscripts. I gotta share these because they're just too weird. So Lula is now 15. She's no longer a competitive gymnast. And last night, I kind of ran this story in my head, and then I checked my email, and I had just gotten an email from USA Gymnastics notifying me that she is no longer an active member. No, this is a great thing. They're pieces of shit. And then second of all, my older daughter, Anina, is not an athlete. She's a theater geek. She spent all summer putting on a production of The Little Mermaid. She was Sebastian. It was great. And then on the day of the show, we're getting ready to go, and I get a text, not my wife, me, from Anina saying, "I am wearing the wrong bra for this outfit." They can't attach to the microphone. Can you please get the bra in the right-hand corner of my... And I was like, oh my God, these girls are going to grow up. They're going to be beautiful, powerful women. And wherever they go and whatever they do, they will be wearing the wrong bra. And need their daddy. Thank you.
Ron Hart. Oh my God, Ron, you couldn't see. It had so many wonderful turns at the end. I think I peeked my head out 8 times. It was like, is it Groundhog Day? Do we get another hour? Another round of applause for Ron Hart. So wonderful. Y'all, we are going to take a really quick 5-minute intermission, so please get more drinks, and we'll be right back for 2 more stories. Thank you so much.
Please give it up for Risk.
Hi, it's me, Risk. Yeah, I'm new to the app. My name is Risk. I like surfing and crystals and making my woman happy. And it's, by the way, it's spelled R-I-S-Q-U-E. Risk. I have been with my husband for, next year we will have been together 20 years, which is crazy. And I missed that dating app thing. Like, it's a thing that so many people I know and love and are like siblings to me, friend-wise. It's like a thing they go through and I can't fucking understand it. Like, it's like, oh, I want to feel empathy, but I just feel sympathy. Like, I can't really go all the way there. I remember when I was living in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, oh God, Jesus. It was shortly before 9/11. God. There was a thing called Nerve.com. I mean, it wasn't just in Brooklyn. Does anyone know Nerve.com? Nerve.com. Nerve.com was like, it was really cool in Williamsburg. It was like a fetish website where you could see like cool photos of people with like pierced nipples covered in like marzipan. It was like a lot of like porno tank girl, if that tracks. And I remember everyone in Williamsburg, I don't know if you remember this, babe, but do you remember everyone was abuzz about like, you can now meet people that fuck on Nerve? Nope. Okay. It was like an arts and culture website. I love that I'm just going to keep describing Nerve to you. And then someone's going to be like, oh, that! Yeah. And I remember that was the first thing that I ever was like, and I remember, like, I was one of those cool Williamsburg, like, electro clash kids. I had a mullet mohawk, but not, like, it looked like fashion because I was young enough to pull it off, but it was only just because I was poor and just had a clippers, and that was the only part of my head I could see. Do you know what I mean? It was like, oh, who's that kid with a rat tail and, like, a dirty shirt? Oh, someone with no money who doesn't have a washer and dryer in their apartment. And I remember, to me, that was shocking. To me, it was shocking that you would go on the pooter and you would type in, like, here's what I like, here's who I am, I will meet you at a cafe, because it had a chat feature. God, what am I talking about right now, y'all? It had a chat feature, and there was this cute guy with a nerve.com account. And I was like deeply, when I lived in Brooklyn in that time, I seemed like I was like, like I had the mullet. I knew, like, I listened to good music. I wore Docs. My jewelry, I had a ceiling fan chain that I wore around my neck, and I put a padlock on it. That was cool. But I was so deeply sexually terrified. I would go to, like, the local club, and I would, like, lean on the jukebox with my friends, and I would, like, chain smoke, and, like, Joy Division would play, and then a guy would come and be like, you're cute, and I'd be like, I have to go home! Like, I was so scared. And then I would just put on the headphones of my Discman and listen to How Soon Is Now by the Smiths, and, like, then get home and cry and masturbate about why am I so lonely. I don't even know where this is going. Anyway, happy Annie. 20 years, it's coming. It'll be 20 years. What will it? He always, for a long time, my husband couldn't come to my shows because he worked, and then we moved, so now he can. And I think he's quickly realizing 2 months in why he stopped coming to the shows, because this is now the second time they've been like, babe, was it? Look, he just wants to relax by a painting. Like, he just wants me to shut the fuck up. But anyway, I love him very much. Are y'all excited for more stories? Yeah. What? Walmart. Oh, I thought what he screamed Walmart. It was a callback. But I thought what he screamed was one more. And I was like, oh, God, there's two. Oh, God, this man's going to murder me. They'll be fast. I met this storyteller in New York years ago, and he was so talented and kind, and I got to tell at a few shows with him and work with him on some stories. He is an Ecuadorian-American teaching artist. He's born and bred in Queens, New York, and he's a Moth Story Slam champion, and he's featured on the Moth Radio Hour podcast. If you don't know the Moth Radio Hour podcast, you can go to themoth.org and listen to so many wonderful stories. They're not as good as Risk stories, because if you want to go to art, no, I'm kidding. They're both great. They're different. They're two flavors of pie. I'm so happy he can do the show and that he's here. How long ago did you move here now? 3 months ago? Can you just give an applause for moving here 3 months ago and jumping right into it and doing shows and shit? A big round of applause for Christopher Moncayo-Torres.
So I think there was more than one reason that my engagement didn't work out. It's okay to laugh. They're like the kind of reasons where, like, an outsider would not have the most faith or confidence in us. Like, for example, I was 21 when I proposed, and she was 19, and I'm 38 now. We were, like, really into Halloween, and so, like, I proposed on Halloween. That's right. And that sounds cute. Like, it's okay proposing on Halloween. The thing is like, costume choice. I was Joker and she was Harley Quinn. So, like, we weren't emulating the, like, greatest of dynamics in regards to healthy relationships. And also, when I met her, she had a boyfriend. There was a lot of things that people were like, signs, red flags. I would call them yellow flags. And I would take pause. And the other way to see it would be like, you know what? We were young. We were really passionate about each other. We were, like, nerdy about Halloween. And it worked out, even, if she had a guy. But she chose me. So, in either way, when it ended, my grieving was really tough on me. It manifested in, like, really long walks. I took, like, all walks, like, throughout New York City, like, particularly, like, in Bushwick and Brooklyn. like where we spent so much time together. And I was walking by all the familiar places, even by her house. And so if immediately you're thinking that's creepy and stalkerish, I'm not going to waste my 10 minutes here telling you otherwise. But I will say that I wasn't looking for her. I would have been mortified if I saw my ex. Like, we probably would have got into like some fight or something. We were that like, we both want to hold a controller kind of couple, if that makes any sense to anybody. I just needed to see the house, the duplex, where we spent a lot of time there. And like her parents are super protective, so like that's just where we hung out. And I remember walking by and I just would look at the porch and think back to like, that's where we spent like forever saying goodbye to each other, where we would just linger. And her mom would be like, yeah, termina, like, alrighty, go home. But we just had so much love for each other. And I think that's also what I needed to see. Like, I missed that love or connection. So one of these times I go by the duplex, I'm going by the train, about to jump on the L, and I see right by the entrance what looked like folded pieces of paper, and something told me to pick it up, and so I go for it, and I realize it's actually a wallet. It's one of these wallets that are like in the shape of something, like sometimes you take a subway map and you make it into a wallet. It's got sleeves in it, and right away, like I see that there's $400 in it, all 20s. And so like the Queens native that I am, I didn't skip a beat. I pocketed it and went straight for the train. Didn't make eye contact with anybody because then they'd be like, that's my wallet. I'm like, no, not anymore. So when I'm in the train, the like 8 years of Cactus School like finds me and squeezes my guilt. And shout out to Our Lady of Lourdes. But you went there too. So I was thinking like, if I lost $400, I'd want it back. And so I was like, gonna do my due diligence. And so I look in the sleeves, I find an ID, California ID, and it's San Francisco. And I'm like, I'm not gonna send $400 to this random address in San Francisco that she might or might not live at anymore. But I read the name, it was Cynthia Haskins, red hair, blue eyes, 5'5", faded photo. Okay, I looked and I see a bank card. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll drop it off at the bank. I learned that banks don't want to be accountable for any lost items. So I was like, okay, all right, fine. And I'm like, police station. Never mind. And so like, that's nothing against cops. That's nothing against cops. It's just like, how did she know to find it? I don't know why you're all laughing, but that's just my point. So then I'm thinking, okay, great. This will like soothe my grief. I earned these $400. This will make me feel better. Like, what could I do with $400? Maybe I could take a trip somewhere and I could be sad somewhere else. And then there was one more card in the wallet that like stood out to me, and it was practically like a blank card with a magnetic strip and a signature space. And it said, in the signature space, UWS/AG. And that's it. And then there was like a website and like some sort of like login info. So I figured I'd go to the website. Maybe this would lead to something. And I see that it's linked to like a corporation that owns like a bunch of restaurants. In New York City, there's like a bunch of Dos Caminos. There's like a lot of them. And so apparently like this is a corporate website. Like it owns all these. And if you're like an employee, you log in. And I logged in and I thought there was like an allowance. And I was like, oh, maybe this is like a server. I used to be a server. Sometimes some companies give you like, here, you could spend it on whatever you want at the restaurant. So I'm like, okay, but there's so many Dos Caminos. And I'm like, I don't think I could find her. And then I had like kind of like a beautiful mind moment. Like I'm looking at all the restaurants and these two stood out to me. Maybe it was more like a Sesame Street moment. You know what I mean? Like one of these doesn't belong with the other kind of thing. Whichever fits with y'all. And then I realized like, oh, there's like two restaurants. They're called Atlantic Grill. And one's on the Upper East Side and then one's on the Upper West Side. AG, Atlantic Grill, UWS, Upper West Side. Great, maybe that's where she's at. So the next day I make a beeline to the restaurant, and it's right across the street from like Lincoln Center, so it's kind of like hoity-toity kind of restaurant, neighborhood, and like it's even kind of hidden, like it didn't want people in there, so I was like, okay. So like when I go in, I'm like, okay, how am I gonna find, and I see a hostess, and she's like, hi, do you have a reservation? Can I help you? And I'm like, no. And she's like flipping pages. She's like, well, if you don't have a reservation, I'm gonna. And there's like a couple behind me, and they're like well dressed. And I was like in this. I'm like in a t-shirt and jeans and some sneakers. And then I take out the wallet, and she right away is just like, oh my God, you have Cynthia's wallet. And like she's like, excuse me, folks, to the people behind me. And she's like, you follow me. And we cut through the restaurant, and everyone's like in dresses and suits, and the ceiling's like a church, like it's super high and steeple-like, and the food smells amazing, and I'm never gonna eat there. And I'm like, people are kind of eyeing me, and I'm like, maybe they think I'm like dropping off the food or delivering it. I don't know. So like I make my way, and it's a New Yorker in me. I'm just suspicious all the time. And so I go to the back, and she leads me. She's like, so you go to that bartender, and he'll talk. Just tell him, show him the wallet. And I'm like, wow, there's like 2 bars. It's like a massive restaurant. And so I go up to the bartender, and he looks super busy. And he's just making drinks, and I'm trying to get his attention. And I was like, crap. And so like I take out the wallet, and I kind of shake my hand. And he's just like, oh my God, you have Cynthia's wallet. And then he just like starts screaming. He's like, yo, this dude's got Cynthia's wallet. Like, yo, you have no idea, man. She's been like crying about that wallet. And I was like, before I could say anything, other people like surrounded me. They're like, oh my God, like, how'd you find her? How'd you find the wallet? And then I feel a tap on my shoulder, and I turn around, and I see 5'5", red hair, blue-eyed, beautiful girl. And I didn't know what to say. I kind of like was like super nervous suddenly. And I take out, like I'm kind of handing her the wallet. And she's like, oh my God, like you found my wallet. Like, how did you find my wallet? And for some reason, the first thing I thought was like, you carry way too many 20s in your wallet. You shouldn't do that. That's not safe. I don't know if you're new to the city, but you shouldn't carry so much money. I thought you were a stripper at first, because like, maybe that makes sense. And like, or like, maybe you run money. I don't know, whatever. I'm not going to judge you. When I get nervous, I talk a lot. So before I can keep going, she just hugs me. And she's squeezing me. And it's been a while since I've gotten some feminine affection. So I just hug her back. And we're just kind of holding each other. And again, I don't know how this is going to sound to y'all, but like her hair was like near my nose, and like I don't want to say there was a smell, but like it just smelled like something new. That's it. And I just remember thinking that. I was like, that's a new thing. And then she pulls away. She's got tears in her eyes, and she's just like, "Oh my God! Like you have no idea. This is my rent money. Like this." She takes out like a menu, and she hands it to me. It's like a Bible of a menu, super thick. And she's just like, "Order whatever you want, Jake. It's on me." She's talking to the bartender. Order a drink, food. I have to check on my tables, but I will be right back. Just don't go anywhere. And so I sit at the bar, and I take out my menu. And I'm like, this is the meet cute. This is the story we're gonna tell our kids. This is like, hey, we met this way, and the kids are gonna be like, oh my God, they're gonna emulate this beautiful connection. And I see my mind going. My mind is like already like, yeah, this is the way people meet. This is like amazing. Also like, McAllen, 18, meet. 3 fingers. And I'm flipping. I'm like, I order a fish, seafood dish that I can't even pronounce. I was like, I'll have that one. And so I'm there. Like I take out like my journal, and I'm just sort of like scribbling around like crazy day I'm having. And then suddenly I feel a tap on my left shoulder, and I turn, and someone says to me, "What's a cutie like you sitting all by yourself?" And I meet who I come to later find out is Martha. Martha's got like silver streaks in her hair, a little bit of tar on the top of her teeth, significantly older from what I could tell. And I'm like, it's a long story. I've got time. So I was like, great. I recounted what happened, and she right away is like, oh my God, you guys are gonna get married. But if you want to be with a real woman. And she puts her hand on my leg and like squeezes it, and I was like, Martha. This goes on for a while. And again, like I could have just got up and left, right? Like I'm sure you're all thinking that right now, like get up and leave. Don't put yourself in that position. But I wanted to see what was going to happen with Cynthia. And so like I put myself through, and also like this food came, and this delicious drink. And I was just like, I'll juggle this. I'll see where this goes. I think I can manage both. Cynthia would come in from time to time, and she's like, hey, I learned that she's a writer. She did her MFA somewhere in California that I can't remember right now. And she was like into creative stuff. She's in a band. And I was just like, oh, we're meant to be. And so at the same time, Martha's like, my husband's Bruce Springsteen's agent. I see you have a little book. Maybe you want to be a writer? And I was like, isn't that like a music guy? It's the same. It's the same. He can help you if you need help with your career. And I was like, I'm good. No. And so she keeps going until finally she grabs me between my legs. I didn't make that sound. I made it, because that's like a hushed. I did like a yip, loud. For everyone to hear, for Jake to hear. And Jake walks over. He's just like, is there a problem? And I kind of like quickly was like, I don't belong here. Like, I'm the first person to get kicked out. And so I was like, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if to rat out Martha here. And then right away, Martha's like, Jakey, if you wanted to come over, if I invited you, wouldn't you come over? And he's like, Martha, no. I told you, stop harassing the youth. We've told you this time and time again. And Martha goes on this tirade. Well, that's just the way it goes. Look around the bar. See, everyone does it. He and him. See, they're together. And I started noticing that there were some older people with some younger folks. And I was like, what community am I in right now? And I don't want to make assumptions, but I knew I wanted to get out of it. And so right away, Jake's just like, Martha, they go at it. They go back and forth. And she's like, stop harassing him. She's like, don't tell me what to do. And then she takes out like a e-cigarette. And she pulls it and she blows smoke right in his face. And Jake didn't like that. And so right away, he's just like, I need you to go, Martha. That's it. We've told you time and time again, you gotta go. And so she gets up away from the bar. And apparently she had like Dwayne Reed bags, which was like pharmacy bags. She just had like 2 shopping bags that came out of nowhere. She like pulls them up. And she looks at me and she's like, you missed an opportunity of a lifetime. And she starts walking out, hitting people with her bags. Like, people are just trying to eat their food. Now, when I was looking at Martha, something in my brain just started thinking like, maybe, listen, I'm not an older white woman, right? But like, there's something about her persistence. There was something about her like pushiness, something about like she wanted something and she just kept going and going and going, that I was just like, is that gonna be me? Like, what am I doing here? Like, what am I looking for? Like, am I pushing this? Like, I should have just dropped off this wallet. Maybe that was a sign. Maybe like that happened so that I can go. Cause like, I need to get out of here. I gave her the money and I needed to go, but why am I still here? And then suddenly Cynthia comes in and she's like, what did you do to Martha? And I was like, I don't know. But like, I'm so happy you got your money. I think I'm gonna go. And she's like, wait. And she takes out her little like notepad where she takes her orders and she writes something and she hands it to me and it has her name and her phone number. It's happening. And she says, maybe we can hang out sometime. And I was like, cool, cool. And so maybe, like, what would you want to do? She's like, I'm in a band, like I said, so like you could come and watch me play. And I was like, oh, like, do you play in Bushwick? Because that's where I found your wallet. She's like, no, that's where my boyfriend lives. And so I made those sounds, but inside. And I hand the paper back to her. And she just was very confused. She's like, what? I was like, I can't. And I found myself like stuttering. Like I really couldn't get into it. I had a weird moment where I thought like, oh, somebody with somebody else. This feels familiar. And is it the same that happened with my ex? Is this like a sign that I'm just not reading? And like, no. Like, maybe we'll just be friends, but it could lead to something. I just start panicking. Either way, the fact that I just didn't feel comfortable just was enough. Shouldn't that be enough? Right? But I didn't listen to she says, listen, like, relax. We'll just be friends. And also, like, you never know what happens. And I was just right away, like, in my mind, I was like, that is not a way to start a relationship. Like, that is just not cool. Like, if I was her boyfriend, I wouldn't be happy. Maybe they have an open situation. I didn't know at the time. And so I took the number. I took it. I took the piece of paper and I stuffed it in my pocket and I headed out. And so it's like a day or two and I'm doing the thing that I do. And I'm walking through Bushwick and I needed something familiar like I always did at that time. And I'm just in the physical past again. I'm looking at like the park where like my ex and I would just like hang out and just talk and make each other laugh with stupid internet stuff. And I have this phone number in my hand. I still haven't texted Cynthia. And I have something new in my hand and I'm surrounded by something old. Sounds like I'm getting married. And so I wish I could tell you that I didn't text her, but I did. I did text her and she didn't message me back. And I was really grateful for that. Yay for Cynthia. Yay for rejection. Good for, well, I mean, here's the thing, and we're gonna talk. Here's the thing, I couldn't control that part, right? So there's a lot of conversations about choices. And so I realized that I made a choice that I also was ashamed of. Like, I didn't feel good. Like, I was immediately being like, fuck. I thought I could stop. I had this whole moment and I still pursued it. Like, even though she said we could just be friends, I didn't believe it. I still was doing the thing that I kept doing. I kept finding people where they was just like, don't do it. And so I'm living in that shame, and I get to the corner, and I'm going to do the thing that I usually do, and I see the duplex. And I see my ex's duplex, and I remember missing so many things in that moment. And I thought I knew where my life was going to go when I proposed. And it went somewhere else. And I remember closing my eyes and thinking, I want something new. I don't want to do this anymore. Now, it was the first time, I wish I could tell you it was the last time, that I didn't want to see that house anymore. And so I turned around, and I went around the block to avoid the duplex, and I got on the train, and I went to go walk somewhere else. Thank you.
Christopher Moncayo-Torres. So good. You're a returner like me. You're a returner. You want to go to the scene of the feel. I get it. I also think that Martha was a landlord I had in the East Village once, just briefly. I love her, Martha. Tell him Marge sent you. I loved him. I kind of was really hoping that you would go to the girls' show, because have you ever had that thing where you have a crush on someone and they tell you that they do a certain art, like maybe they're an actor or a musician, and you go and see them in the thing and it is a nightmare. Like it's like whatever boner or like hard nipple you had is just being pummeled into submission by their craft. God. Ugh. And then it's just like schizophrenia. You know, schizophrenia, I want more people to say it. It's that feeling you get when it's beyond I'm embarrassed or I'm embarrassed for you. It's I'm embarrassed internally the way you should be. It's an out of body, it's a full entrance into their, it's like you realize as a Scientologist that they are just full of a thetan and you're ejecting that thetan and then taking up the space to really feel the shame they're somehow free from. I lived in Brooklyn for a while, and there was this really cute guy in the neighborhood, and at the time I was a barista, and I was like, and I would run him, and he was like, oh, I'm a musician. I was like, oh, I'm sure you're great. And he showed up at a cafe one night with his experimental band, and it was a guy with like a really rusty trombone. I don't mean that in like I mean, it was a rusty trombone. And then it was a few people, him and two other guys, and they just had a garbage bag full of fully blown up balloons. And they proceeded to play out of sync horn while the rest of them dragged their fingers across the surfaces of the blown up balloons. You know that sound? And they just did that. And they did it with great feeling, like a folk band. And people just left the cafe. No one made any money. But I'm happy for him. I am so y'all have been the best crowd. We have one more story tonight. I want to tell you, if you like Risk and you want to come back, we are here on Tuesday, September 19th with another amazing lineup. We have one more storyteller up tonight. This is, again, someone I've known from way back from New York City. She is fantastic. She is a Moth Slam winner. She's a show that she just did in the Fringe called Patient 13. That's really incredible, and she's getting to re-up that show soon at the Broadwater, and it's October 20th, 21st, and 22nd. Please welcome Gail Thomas.
Thank you. Hi. Oh, gosh. Do we know each other? No. That's nice, though. Hi, everybody. One big hi, Gail. Hi, Gail. So I did not walk through my parents' living room. I did cartwheels. And another gymnast. And then I went into my bedroom and cried. It wasn't that I had a rough childhood. I just felt everything more deeply than anybody else. It was Oklahoma in the 70s. We lived in the suburbs, at the end of a cul-de-sac where deep conversations go to die. Emotions were discouraged. And talking about feelings was, as my mom would put it, well, I just don't need to do that. I did need to do that. I was a skinny girl with a pixie haircut. I was a daydreamer and a poet. And I would cry at cartoons. I would cry at sunsets. I would cry when my sister sat on me and pinned my arms to the ground. But fortunately, I had Dad. Dad would knock on my bedroom door, peek his head in, and come in and comfort me. He would make me laugh no matter how much I wanted to cry. It would be like, oh. And we had our own special language. He used to call me Goober, which was a big compliment. And if he was really proud of me, he would call me Goober Duckus. That's what you want to hear. My uncle, I said to Dad that I am never going to get married unless I can find somebody exactly like you. And we agreed that that was impossible. By the time I reached high school, his older brother, Uncle Buddy, told me at a drunken family event, you know, you're the favorite. And I kind of knew that, but I wanted to keep it on the down low because I don't want my sister to sit on me again. So I grew up and I moved. It did something that Dad would never do. I moved to New York City. I quit my lucrative corporate job and I became an actor because that's where they need people who can cry. One summer evening in 2003, Dad called and asked me what I had been doing that day. And I said, oh, well, I just walked in the Peace March. And he hung up on me. Yeah, that had never happened before. I was shocked, but I was not surprised. It was Oklahoma. My dad was sitting in his recliner. He had retired, and all he was doing now was watching Fox News. A staunch Republican. And I'm holding the phone, and I'm so shocked, and I want to call him back and just say, you know, Dad, I actually didn't really walk in the Peace March. I actually went to go get a slice of pizza, and the Peace March was next to the pizza shop, and I was just eating my slice as I walked. I thought, oh, I could just walk in the march, and it was like a pizza march, not actually a peace march. And that was actually true, because I wasn't very political. But when I thought about it, as I'm holding the phone trying to figure out what to do, I think, what is wrong with walking in a peace march? But the bond that Dad and I had disappeared. And I wasn't sure if I could get it back. Now, by now, my sister is a staunch Republican. Before, she was the rebel, and I was the good girl, and now I'm the rebel, and she's the good girl. And that same year, my dad tells me, well, I've decided, you know, your sister's going to be the power of attorney and the executor and the power of everything, and I'm kind of crushed. But I gotta be me, but I think, well, okay, I'll just keep trying to get it back. Maybe I can get this goober thing back again, you know? I'm charming, I'm still charming. So I would go to visit, I would visit Oklahoma frequently, and Dad would be sitting in his recliner, cooking, opening peanut shells, throwing them into the grocery bag, and watching Fox News. And I couldn't hold myself back. I was like, Dad, they're brainwashing you. Why are you're too smart for this? I didn't say that, but I said, you know, I tried to say it in a nice way. I don't know how to say it in a nice way, but I tried. And things just couldn't get better. I just started going to my room quietly and spending less time in the living room. One particular visit, however, he was making pancakes. And he was putting blueberries into the pancakes. And he mentioned that my sister actually, whenever she had got out the blueberries, she would wash them all at the same time, which he said was a terrible thing because that makes them spoil much sooner. And I thought, well, that's a win. I don't do that, Dad. I wash the blueberries one at a time, Dad, and I will continue to do that. So I'm trying to find this compromise between being me and finding our closeness. And I'm really looking forward to Thanksgiving of 2018 because my brother and sister are not going to be there. So I'll have full-on charm, no competition with the Republicans, just me. And I can't wait, right? And at this point, my parents have moved into assisted living, and I stay at the house, which is very close to that, and we have a lovely dinner. And that morning, early the next morning, my mom calls at 3 o'clock in the morning and says, Dad's breathing is bad again. You got to come over here. And I go to their apartment, and I rush Dad to the ER. And he spends the next few days in ICU. But he gets better. And they send him to the room, the floor, that's the 4th floor, which is supposed to be the you're getting out of here soon floor, so we're optimistic. And I'm sitting with him, I'm sitting next to his hospital bed, and he's falling asleep in the middle of a sentence. And this is not right. I'm not buying this get out of here soon thing. So I run and find a nurse and I bring her in here and she measures his breathing and she's like, she gasps herself and they rush him back to ICU. And now I'm sitting late at night in the waiting room, surrounded by all these families, in these different sectionals. And I'm sitting there in this solo chair and I think, okay, this is my job now. I can do this. I can do this for Dad. I can do this for the family. And my job is to keep Dad from suffering, to comfort Mom, and to text my brother and sister updates on all the medical stuff, which is not easy to do. But he does get better. And so my sister and brother, they come into town, and I fly back to New York to catch up on some stuff, and we sort of do a tag team. And my sister calls me at one point and says, Dad is staring at the clock in his room, and he's saying, tick tock, when do you think it's going to happen? And I actually think that's kind of funny, because Dad and I, one of the things we shared was a dark sense of humor. And I think, he probably wouldn't say that to me because I would probably say, I don't know, Dad, when do you think it's going to happen? And my sister says, it's really cruel because he knows that this would upset me. And I'm like, yeah. And he wouldn't say it to me. He also tells her that he says that Gail wants to be here for the Big Bang. And I do. He's right. I want to be there for the Big Bang. But it's not happening yet. He's getting better. And so now I fly back. I fly back into Oklahoma City to be there for when they're going to take Dad and send him to the rehab center because he's getting better. So Mom waits by the elevators and I go into Dad's room while the paramedics come and they're strapping him into this portable gurney thing. And his face contorts. And I say, Dad, do you want some pain meds? And he says, pain meds, and he passes out. And suddenly it's code red, and it feels like the entire hospital is now in my dad's room, and they're running around, and I'm like, this is my job now, my decision, as the doctor comes up to me and says, do you want us to give him CPR? And I don't know, that's not supposed to be my job, and there was supposed to be a DNR, but there isn't one, and I'm supposed to decide, and the doctor says, this could break his ribs, and I'm supposed to decide, and I say, I know that my brother and my sister want to be there, and I just don't feel like it's time, and so I say, give him CPR. And they do. And they send him back to ICU. And I'm praying that I made the right decision. And my brother and sister fly into town, And we're all there standing around his hospital bed when he wakes up the next morning, or when the doctor begins to wake him up. And I am just praying that I made the right decision and he doesn't wake up in pain. They take out the tube, he wakes up, and he smiles. And he laughs, and he makes jokes, and he winks at my mom repeatedly, and she says, "Oh, Jim." And it's the sweetest day and the most beautiful dad in his joyful, he's not grouchy, he's not in pain. It's just a beautiful, beautiful day. And they take him, later in the day, they take him to a hospice room. And I spend the first night there with Dad. And I want to have, the whole time he's been in the hospital, I keep wanting to have the conversation, to say, Dad, I love you, and can we get back on track? And I'm sorry that I kept bringing up the Fox News thing, and then I went to my room, and but I know that this isn't the time to say that, because this is he's on the way out, and this isn't about me, this is about him. So I think, well, okay, maybe the best thing to do right now is to circle back to childhood. And I say, okay, Dad, didn't you play a lot of sports when you were little? And he says, yeah, I played a lot of sports. And I said, you were really good, weren't you? And he's like, yeah, I was really good. And I said, what'd you play? He said, baseball. And I said, oh, yeah. He said, I was in the outfield. I had a really good eye. And I'm like, yeah, oh. And I said, okay, Dad, what was the name of your team? What was the name of your baseball team? And he says, Wildcats. And he falls asleep. And the next day, my sister spends the night, and he's still with us. And I asked the nurse, can he still hear us? Because he's not talking anymore. And she says, yeah, the last thing to go is hearing. And so my sister and I get on each side of his, well, actually, first she leaves the room, and I kneel next to him, and I think, okay, now I'm going to have this conversation. And I feel kind of bad because I can't talk back now, but I want to say so many things. So I say, Dad, sorry about the Fox News thing. I really love you. And then I go, okay, keep it light. And I really love you, and you're a great dad, and I learned so much from you. And then my sister comes back, and then we stand on each side of his bed, each of us holding one of his arms, and we sing, when he lifts you up on eagle's wings. And then we go home to shower and return quickly. But when we get back, the nurse tells us that Dad had passed. And she takes me aside and tells me, this is one of the most peaceful departures I've ever seen from any patient. And I'm just so grateful that I could be part of I did make his life more difficult at the end, and I was confrontational, maybe when I shouldn't have been as he was aging. But I did pull out some gooberness at the end. And my sister tells me, once he's gone, that because I'm still sort of tortured by it, I'm still thinking maybe I shouldn't have been so stubborn, and maybe I shouldn't have, maybe I should have pretended to be a Republican. Maybe that's what I should have done. But my sister says, no, you actually showed him that he can love someone who has different beliefs than he does. Well, that's pretty good. But I'm still not satisfied. So I hear about a medium, and I decide I'm going to talk to Dad up there. And so I have this session with this medium, and the first thing I say to him through her is, so Dad, why did you pick Kay? Why did you give my sister Kay all the power of everything? I mean, I was your goober, and we were really close, and why'd you do that? And he said, through her, that it was easier. And I couldn't argue with that. I was not being easy. And then I said, well, Dad, why couldn't you respect my beliefs? Because I have my own beliefs. And he said, through her, why didn't you respect mine? And I was like, oh, that's a good one. I hadn't thought of that. And that's definitely Dad. And one of the things I had wanted to ask him is, now that you're in heaven, that Trump is wrong or bad, right? Now they don't have Fox News. I'm right? But he just brought up the thing about respecting his beliefs, so I got to let that go. But I finally felt at peace. I finally felt at peace. And I realized I'm still single. And I realized I am not going to find, and nor should I don't need to be with a man who's just like my dad, because he wouldn't be right for me. But I do know what my dad and I share is a strong will, sticking to our beliefs, and I know that love is not about agreement. Love is about respect. Thanks.
Gail Thomas, everyone. I just really love the sentence, now that you're in heaven, you know that Trump is bad. That's just a sentence that it's a great sentence, Gail. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to be here Tuesday, September 19th. You can go to risk-show.com for more info about the show and the podcast and tickets. Podcast, yeah. By the way, let's get a round of applause for... Fred. You're some of the most productive and positive audience feedback I've got. We're used to people being like, no. And yours, even earlier, I misunderstood. I was like, oh, I know you're lifting me up, Fred. You've lifted us up all night. Thank you so much. Y'all, this is an Amaro cocktail. They have it at the bar. You should get one. It's really good. This is not a double. I think it just comes this way. Shocking. We're going to be here next month, Tuesday, September 19th, like I said. Go to the website for more information, and we'll see you soon. A round of applause for all of our storytellers. Ron and Gail and Christopher and Jen. Thank you so much, and have a good night.